After the box office success of the first Tomb Raider movie, Angelina Jolie would kind of become super recognizable as Lara Croft. She wanted the sequel to have a better story than the first though, and a pretty big change up in people behind the camera resulted in a completely different kind of film. This time ditching the Indiana Jones adventure for more of that 007 appeal, and even getting the video game company involved alongside a gigantic production that was co-created by all kinds of different countries. What resulted was the final film in the initial Tomb Raider movie series, and one that I have a lot of opinions about.
No one who has gone looking for this has come back.
Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life is a 2003 action-adventure movie directed by Jan De Bont, the same man that almost made the 1994 Stan Winston version of Godzilla, and the guy that eventually did make Twister. The movie stars Angelina Jolie, who returns as Croft, alongside Gerard Butler and Ciarán Hinds.
Why?
Rice is going to find Pandora's box.
Do you mean the Greek myth?
So the beginning of this movie starts with Lara Croft hanging out around Greece, where an earthquake has just uncovered the lunar temple of Alexander the Great, who wanted it buried and never to be found because hidden inside was something that could lead to Pandora's box, and the Cradle of Life, where all life could have come from on Earth. Now, the opening action scene is actually really fun, and I'm not gonna lie, I was more or less grinning and enjoying every bit of it early on, so much so that when Lara gets herself into trouble and cuts her arm to lure in a shark, I knew I was in for something wild. Oddly enough, the rest of the movie is completely different from this, and in fact, I'd argue that this is the moment that Lara Croft may have started drifting further away into more of the character that we would see in newer entries. She still retains some of that old school feel, but there's something about her character here that is leaving behind the identity of the original feel and tone of the first few video games. I would even say that this could be the moment that acts as some sort of stepping stone between the video game's vibe from Angel of Darkness to Tomb Raider Legend. Lara Croft has always had a personal side to her, but this is one of the first times that I think she feels different as a person, which if you've played some of the way newer games after Underworld or even around that time, she went through a drastic reimagining. And I'm going to put forth a little argument that's a theory, if you will. Cradle of Life may have had a hand in that.
Take us to the Cradle of Life. It's your destiny.
Now, one of the things that I think actually works really well with Cradle of Life is its plot structure. The movie is competently made, and for what it's worth, I actually really enjoyed the ending where Gerard Butler's relationship with Angelina Jolie boils down to a pivotal moment that it all feels very earned and memorable. It's just kind of disappointing that the bulk of the movie is nowhere near as interesting as that kind of character stuff at the end. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, Lara is captured and kind of out of commission for way too much of the movie, in my opinion. I don't know what it was with the people behind the filmmaking. Like, her kind of move from place to place like that is weird. She gets captured, she gets out of a jam, she gets back into one, and then she kind of plays a role that's, I don't know, it's like a little too similar to a 007 or an Indiana Jones. This is Lara Croft we're talking about here. She needs to be riding giant spiked props, kicking people in the face with a motorcycle, and bungee jumping off the ceiling. So the monsters in this movie, we're going to talk about them. They're great, by the way. They only show up at the very end, but everything else is just kind of too bland in that early 2000s sort of normal action movie kind of way. The monsters, I really wish that the film had dived deeper into stuff like Alexander the Great's temple and how they relate to all of them at the beginning, or more or less like these shadow creatures at the end, these beasts. They're very cool. They kind of have this great don't go into the long grass scene where they respond by only seeing movement like a T-Rex or something. They chop people up, they come out of trees, they rip them apart. It's dark and scary like the games, and it's just cool. I wanted more of that. I wanted it more connected to the beginning of the film. And speaking of which, comparatively to my other Tomb Raider review, Colin Wilson is out this time as producer. The guy that did the last Tomb Raider movie and The Lost World Jurassic Park. This time, Michael Kahn, the editor of the first two Jurassic Park movies, ended up being involved though, which is kind of cool. Speaking of which, check out this cool Jeep commercial for the movie.
They can't catch us now.
So The Cradle of Life was made on a budget of $95 million and wound up grossing around $160 million, which is a far cry from the original's $274 at the box office. Now, to coincide with the release of this movie, the newest video game, Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, was unfortunately rushed out to stores with a ton of unfinished material in the game. And that kind of put the whole Tomb Raider series down for a while when it came to controversy. Critically, there was a handful of people that thought Cradle of Life was an improvement over the first, including Roger Ebert, funny enough, but it wound up being way more criticized overall. The film was competing with the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Spy Kids 3D, and Bad Boys 2, so needless to say, it had a ton of competition. But does the movie really deserve such a bad rap? I gotta admit, the entire first action sequence is extremely fun. The ancient Greek story, the whole underwater appeal, and then the shootout with the weird camera angles tilting. Definitely a highlight in my personal opinion.
But wait! There's more!
Now, unfortunately, this movie just isn't as exciting and entertaining as the first, and the best way I can give my most quick and simple evaluation of the film is that it's kind of two really fun sequences sandwiched in between a very long and somewhat bland experience that feels much more like a run-of-the-mill James Bond film than something like what you'd come to expect from the first outing. Now look, I know Angelina Jolie I think she says that this was the movie she wanted to make in the first place. I would love for her to come and do another one of these because just like the last movie, she really knocks it out of the park, and her performance as Lara Croft is just seriously one of the most memorable action movie roles that I can think of.
That is impressive.
Jan De Bont has gone on record that he personally wasn't too happy with making the film, and I think if things were a little bit different with the overall story, this could have been way more memorable. He did say he did enjoy working with Angelina Jolie, so it just kind of turns out that this thing is an average early 2000s action film that's somewhat forgettable, which, like I said, it's a shame because I don't really hate the movie at all, and I just feel like it could have been way better, and I mean this, I would really like to see a third Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider done today. Heck, let Angelina direct it herself. I don't care. Make it cool. Make it more fun. You know, the opposite of what's being done today.
No weapons of any kind.
Talk about taking the fun out of life.
Nowadays, Lara is a very different character, and while I will admit that I actually liked the Vikander version that I saw in theaters, I just think that this character portrayed by Jolie, she deserves at least one more movie that I think could be a big deal if done today. In the end, I think part 2 of the movie series just wasn't quite as fun and memorable as the first. It's not the worst movie ever made, but it does leave a lot to be desired, and even though I loved the ending drama, I kind of just want to see another one to round everything out. Again, the cast is great. The locations are fun, but at the end of the day, this just doesn't feel like a Tomb Raider movie. There's so much that could be done to make the whole adventure feel grand and have this level of fun spectacle that is just missing in the second one, and in my opinion is missing in a lot of the newer games. They kind of became something else, but who knows? Maybe someday we'll get a solid send-off to really round out this cool trilogy and bring it back to what made the old school Tomb Raider stuff so iconic and individualistic in and of themselves. Anyways, guys, those are all just my own thoughts and opinions on the movie. Angelina Jolie is truly great as Lara Croft because of how fun that first movie was and because of the character itself. But whatever your own thoughts and opinions on the Cradle of Life happen to be, I would love to hear all about them, punching shark memes and all, in the comments down below. Let me tell you something, brother. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and if you'd like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you can be updated when I put out new videos. God bless you all. Christ is King. I hope you all enjoyed your time, and as always, take it easy.